This is installment number 10, or submission number 10 of the 100-day art challenge. I decided to try a little bit of mixed media, and I don't do it often enough, and when I do, it's so nerve-wracking for me because I feel as though I'm about to ruin something. And even if I do, I think it's worth taking that risk in order to discover new things. But as you can see here, I am simply mixing a peachy yellow. In fact, it only looks like a yellower yellow, but I'm trying to add bits of a deep red into there as well to make it a peachy kind of colour. And I do enjoy watercolour for the start of a mixed media. Adding a lot of water to the well, and that way I'll have a nice thin mix that I can add to the page, and it should start me off in quite a healthy way. So I do recommend trying this if you're at all curious. Just trying to push it there a little bit past the point where it was. It's kind of almost an orange now, isn't it, really? But the way I'm going to use it is so watery that it will become a peachy kind of wash on the page. And it's a lovely brush that I'm using. It's a watercolor paint brush that I have, and it almost feels like it could be a makeup brush because the bristles are so soft. They're really nice, perfect for using with watercolor, where you want to be gentle and delicate with how you apply the paint onto the surface, because they're all visible, all of these layers, and it can be quite a delicate balance between going too far and not far enough. So I'm adding a mid blue here to the well. All my wells are a bit dirty still, and I don't mind it because I don't want any of the colours to be exactly the same as they are in the blocks anyway. I want them to be mixed slightly and altered. So but I always do mix. I never keep a colour as it is. So there we go, getting a nice warm purple there. And it's time to think about how to approach it almost feels like abstraction when I'm making something which is mixed media, and it's based on a photo reference. I think I've done a touch of brown in there to make it a little bit of a deeper colour as well, which is quite nice. So it almost it's a risky decision to a certain extent, but it feels as though you're really abstracting the reference as well. And that's how this ends up, is that it's not a portrait that's supposed to be accurate. It's only using the reference as a jumping off point. That is something which I don't love when people say that, because it feels like an excuse for inaccuracies. But for the 100-day challenge, I sincerely am not trying to make a big kind of portfolio of accurate portraits, and I am only trying to find some way to make a painting each day. And you can see there it's very watery and loose, and I'm just going to try and get something down, because it doesn't matter if it doesn't quite work, it's at least something for the day. And a daily art challenge is not quite as easy as it might sound. I always think it's something which I should be able to do, just like now when I'm doing this narrative for the video. It's late August, and I'm thinking in my head, should I do Inktober? And I've been advised not to do it because it's always handcuffing myself to a challenge which doesn't yield my best work, and also doesn't allow me to spend enough time on each piece to really see the benefits. I only end up doing something which is a bit of a doodle, a scribble each day, and it's never going to really be a very decent piece of artwork. And when I have work to do in other ways, like producing videos or interviewing artists or traveling to places to document something or doing a freelance piece of artwork, I'm then going to have the additional pressure of having to make something for a challenge that has nothing to do with work. It's only for the sake of the challenge. It's not even necessarily for enjoyment, it's for a challenge alone. Now you can see how with this purple wash I'm trying to use that as a cooler tone against this warm tone of the orangey yellow, and trying to box off certain features of the face. And I think as a watercolour portrait it actually looks quite strong, and it could have been finished off quite nicely with watercolour, but that's the inherent risk of committing to doing mixed media. Sometimes it's a risk, and sometimes you think, I'm going to aim for something a bit wacky and a bit strange. This is all me basically warning you that that's where this is heading, is to the wacky and strange. And here we are. This is, once it's dried, going to oil pastels to put in these cartoonishly large glasses, which are on the photo reference but aren't quite as cartoonish in the references I make them look in this picture. But again, I think that it's its own piece, it's got its own charm to it, and I do quite enjoy having this freedom to experiment and to make work that's a bit more loose and fun and playful than to always try to make something really accurate. I think it's quite a strange balance, a dance between your expectations and your reactions to what is happening on the surface, and that's what I see playing out in this video. But I do like the contrast between the softness of the watercolour and then the strong dry texture of the oil pastel. I think that's quite a nice marriage there, and I think there's potential for more collaborations I don't know if it's collaborations, more mixtures between these two mediums in the future, because of how well they work together in that sense, that they complement each other, one being so fluid and the other being so textured. And for a portrait it's a bit harsh, it's a bit of a severe way to render something as a human being, and it looks almost like I'm anthropomorphizing a creature of some kind that isn't human into a humanoid type of creature. But in truth it's my attempt at a loving rendering of a very sweet person who I've now turned into a bit of a caricature, if you would. And yeah, I still enjoy it, even though it's a little bit strange, but I think it's quite a nice, quirky portrait, kind of caricature portrait. And I think if it weren't a daily challenge, I could definitely develop this type of approach into something which is a lot more impactful and charming and easier to look at. But even as it is, I think it shows the potential, and I quite like it. I don't know if you do, and I'm not just going to say that because it's my own work, but I honestly do. And I like the idea that the scarf is just enough to tie off the portrait as opposed to doing the shoulders. So there it is, that's mine for today.